Okay, everybody, it's Dr. Joe on this Wealth Wednesday. I hope everyone's doing fantastic. We're having a great day here in Washington, D.C. area. And again, we've got a fantastic session lined up. I'm really, really excited. We got a really good VIP guest, and Kevin Kiene. And just to get a little background for those people who don't know who I am. My name is Joe Asamoah. Some people call me Dr. Joe. I've been a real estate investor based in the Washington, D.C. area since 1980, about 35 years. So I've been through a few cycles, real estate market. So I have an idea how this shakes out. I primarily do the buy and hold business model, and I love it. It's a great way to build wealth, and I'm trying to encourage more people to do that as well. So today, as I said before, I've got a VIP guest. But before then, if you can let me know who you are and where you're tuning in from, that'd be great. I know we have an audience kind of spans the country. And so when you come in, just let me know who you are, where you are tuning in from, and give a little shout out to us. And that'll be great. Without further ado, the way this is going to be, we're going to have the guest on in about, we'll talk about 25, 30 minutes, and then we'll do a Q&A. So please get your questions together, and we'll do a Q&A session around 40 minutes from now, and then we'll keep on going through the top of the hour. So again, Joe Asamoah, today's session is called The Top Secrets of a Landlord That's Killing It. Not literally, of course, but figuratively. Top Secrets of a Landlord That's Killing It. And our special VIP guest is an icon in the real estate investing and publishing world. Kevin Kiene grew up in Philadelphia and moved to Naples, Florida, which I just learned is sort of the southern part of the west side of Florida. He's been investing since he was 19 years old, and he still invests today. If memory serves me right, you won't be able to tell that by looking at Kevin. He looks pretty young, but he's been doing it for over 30 years, like myself. And he's got the scars and the gray hairs, just like myself. Well, I've shaved my head, so you can't see my scars. And he invests in several states. And he founded EZ Landlord Forms in 2006, and has been leading the company ever since then. EZ Landlord Forms was born out of Kevin's frustrations, trying to find quality, comprehensive, state-specific leases and other documents. So he decided, if there's no one's doing it, let me go do it myself. And so he started this company in 2006, and they're going really, really strong. I'm a real I'm a customer of theirs. Good documents. So today, Kevin's going to share some of his top secrets and suggestions on how you can also kill it.
That's right.
We're going to kill it tonight, okay, guys? So, with that said,
who doesn't want to kill it? Why not?
Yeah, let's go kill it, man. Let's go hunt it.
If you're going to do it, you gotta go big or go home.
Exactly. So I didn't bring my gun with me, but so with that said, welcome, Kevin. Welcome
Thank
to
you,
the
Joe.
Wealth Wednesday. How you doing, man?
Great, man. Great to be with you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to do this. I mean, we've hit it off so much when we spoke before. Sometimes when you get in the groove of just going through landlording and the different tips and techniques and strategies that you have, you can just carry on conversations for hours, I think.
Okay.
So it's a lot of fun.
Okay, welcome, man. So anyway, as I said, you've been invested since 19. Wow. I mean, I started when I was in my, I think, mid-20s when I started. So you started before me. So what possessed you to start at 19 years old? What happened?
Well, I was a contractor actually at the time, and the person I worked for, his neighbor was a real estate agent and had a house for sale for $4,500, and it was a fixer upper, but I wasn't afraid of that because that's what I did. And I borrowed the money from my grandmother to get started, and I guess the rest is history. But I start with that property, built up many more over the years, and then wound up selling a lot of my properties to build my online business. And I really kind of put all my eggs in one basket, if you will.
Okay.
And it wasn't successful in the beginning, but after 6 to 12 months, I really kind of learned how to do it. It's like it's a whole different industry, right? Now you got to
Yeah.
learn how to market online and make your website successful. But I'm here to talk about real estate investing because I mean,
Okay.
I think like you, we've learned a lot over the years,
Yeah.
and we can really help people that are just getting started and avoid some of the pitfalls hopefully that we've fell into. Um,
Exactly. So
yeah,
so during that time since you started to today, obviously there's been a lot of changes in the business. Do you want to share
yeah.
some of the most you know the key the sort of the key changes that you've seen between when you started versus what you see now in terms of landlording business and so on?
Well, like you said, there's been a lot of changes for all different reasons. So you have normal changes, which is like changes in neighborhoods that sometimes neighborhoods go down, unfortunately, and some rise up. So you learn one of the things I think you learn over time is look for those up and coming areas
Mhm.
because when you're when the value is increasing your rentals, that's where you really make the most money. You
Yeah.
actually usually don't make as much on a monthly cash flow, especially in the beginning, but long term, if your property increases in value, we've seen this recently in the last several years. Some properties have doubled, even tripled in value
Mhm.
in a very short amount of time. So that's just amazing. And the more real estate you own, the more money you're going to make from those increases. Again, especially if you invest in the right areas.
Yeah.
So that's one of the changes, but of course, also like COVID changed a lot of relocating
Yeah.
of people. A lot of people leaving bigger cities to
Yeah.
more suburban areas. Um, there's been just numerous changes for various reasons, but
Yeah.
um, you just keep adjusting and migrating and evolving as the time goes on.
Yeah, because I think for me, some of the biggest changes when I first started, I think interest rates like 10, 11%. And
Yeah,
now,
right.
people are freaking out because it's 4%. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
4%. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. The end of the world now is 5%, Yeah. And that's one thing. The other one is technology. I think technology is a lot more, before it was just a lot more complicated. But now, in the landlording business, it's just easier to access technology, whether it be online
That's very true.
or whatever, and things like that. So that's some of the big changes, at least from my perspective. So let's kind of talk about some of the strategies and tips that you sort of would like to discuss as part of
Yeah,
this sort of
great.
killing it
Let's
thing.
do it.
So let's do it.
All
So
right.
let's talk about acquisition first. We'll kind of go through the life cycle. So it's acquisition, and then sort of the any improvements to the house, and then the renting and evictions, and that turnover and things like that. That's the sequence we're going to go through. So let's talk about acquisitions. So what's your first strong suggestion or tip that you would have for us?
Well, the first thing I tried to do, Joe, is I follow the 1% rule, which is if you spend, for instance, $200,000 for a house, you want to get about $2,000 a month in rent. Okay. And of course, there are other expenses that you have to calculate into that. Like in Florida, there's a lot of HOAs, homeowners associations here,
Right.
which you have to subtract for. But you may include some utilities. You may include the water, for instance. A lot of times you have to remember that a lot of times the owner of the property is ultimately responsible for the water. So other utilities you can usually get
Yeah.
in the tenant's name,
Yep.
and it's not an issue. But the
Yep.
water
Yep.
is one of those items that I like to just keep in my name and
Hmm.
make sure it always gets paid. Because if you put the water in the tenant's name and they run up a big bill and they skip town, you're stuck with paying that bill. So, and it
So,
could be
so what if
thousands of dollars
so if it's
even.
in your name? If they still skip town, it's still in your name, though, isn't it?
Well, I add in to the rent.
Oh,
I
okay,
add a little extra in the rent and
okay,
factor that in
okay,
as
okay.
as a part of
So,
the investment.
okay, so the 1% rule. I know that, I don't know what the price point is where you are, but where we are, the Washington D.C. area, it's quite expensive. So,
Yes.
you're talking 5, 6, 7, 8, $9 million homes, and
Oh,
uh,
wow.
the 1% rule may not always work if you're, that's what I found anyway for at least for where we are. So for those people who live in sort of the more expensive markets, is
Hmm.
the 1% rule cut and dry, or is there some flexibility as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. There's definitely flexibility, again, it kind of depends on what your goals are, and if again, if you invest in an up and coming area that you really think is going to increase in value,
Mm,
maybe it's less important to you.
yeah,
Um, uh, I try to target both.
yeah,
I want to look for up and coming areas and get maybe a smaller place, something that maybe is a little more affordable. And I used to look for fixer uppers, but
mhm.
now I got a little older, and I really look now for turnkey properties,
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
it's really more
Okay.
what floats your boat. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It,
Because you could do
yeah.
well all kinds of ways in real estate.
I mean, are you been able to make money on turnkeys? 'Cause I just find that you know, um, it's hard because I suppose the developer or the investor that has sucked all the money out and of the deal. So is there still money in turnkeys in your opinion?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, I think you can make money some people do Section 8, some
Mhm.
people flip, of course.
Yeah.
I'm a buy and hold like yourself,
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you could make more money with a fixer upper. I
Yeah.
mean, you can buy, fix up, and sell.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
another strategy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and you're going to make money,
Yeah.
especially if you're smart, you're on top of things, and you hire the right people to work for you to
Yeah.
do some of this work, or you do maybe some of it yourself.
Okay.
I think you can make money in all of these different areas.
Do you tend to look in the, let's say every neighborhood is, or every city I suppose is A, B, C, D, E neighborhoods. A is like top of the hill, E is like the war zone.
Right.
uh, yeah. So I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. So do you tend to look in A, B, C, D, E neighborhoods when you're sort of pursuing your acquisitions?
I would be a CD guy in that
Okay.
category.
Okay.
Not quite in the middle, but maybe a little below that.
Okay.
And I think that's a great place for renters.
Yeah.
You know, and I've rented expensive. I've rented my own house I lived in. I actually lived in New Jersey too, after Philadelphia, and I had an expensive house there, worth about $1 million, and
Hmm.
I rented that out actually for parties, like an Airbnb. That was quite an interesting experience
That's
because
another.
Joe, when when this is natural for you and
Yeah.
you've done it all your life,
Yeah.
it's you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a little different renting out a house that you live in and
Yeah.
your clothes and things are there, but
Right.
um, it's in your blood. You
Yeah.
can't get
Yeah.
away from it.
But I mean, now that you're in Naples, do you still look outside of your local area, or you kind of concentrate close to home, kind of thing?
I like investing close to home.
Yeah.
I've done some investing in other states from where I live, from far away, and I really like to be there in
Mhm.
person when
Yeah.
things go wrong,
Yeah.
or a tenant moves out,
Yeah.
because otherwise, a lot of times you're relying on other people. You hear everything third party,
Yeah.
and there's nothing like you being involved,
Yeah.
knowing your tenant. Like, I'm a
Yeah.
strong believer in managing your own rentals.
Okay.
I've had property managers over the years, but you don't even know who your tenants are. You don't even talk to them. So
Exactly.
how can you make a decision,
Right.
if they're going to pay the rent or not, or how to handle that situation?
Yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, you
Okay.
really, it's in your best interest to know your tenants
Okay.
for sure.
Okay. So we've talked about acquisition, and so at this point we've purchased the home, using the formulas that you described, the neighborhoods that you described, and I suppose the next logical thing is we're going to upgrade the house, prepare it before the tenant moves in.
Yes.
So the next thing is, what's the top tip that you suggest in that arena in terms of getting the house ready before the tenant moves in?
Great, Joe. So I really believe in building your rental like a tank. Your rental is going to be in like an extreme environment. So your rental is going to be in a rough and tough environment, and this is counter to what a lot of investors do. So a lot of investors, they think, oh, it's a rental. I'm going to buy the cheapest
Mm,
flooring, or I'm going to buy the cheapest carpet, and I'm going to buy the cheapest countertop, and cheapest appliances. And for one thing is you attract a lower quality tenant when
mm,
you do that. And whatever remodeling that you do is
mm,
not going to last very long. So you're
mm,
going to have to probably do it again, and you're going to wind up paying a lot more because you have to do it twice instead of doing it right the first time.
mm,
And again, using durable materials. So the whole time you want to think about what's going to wear the best. And this is again, I I I can't describe it better than build it like a tank. Like you want it indestructible. You want no matter what happens, you're not going to have a problem with it.
yeah, I remember when I was in England. You probably there's this cartoon program called Captain Scarlet. You know that? Was that in America? Or that's probably an English thing. Anyway. It's like
Yeah, I'm not sure.
anyway,
I love it.
he was like a building like a Scott, indestructible. Okay, so look, okay,
Yes.
so we're gonna make it like a tank. We're gonna make it indestructible. So, what are some of the tips that you do to make that a reality?
Um,
Like the paint, the type of
yeah.
flooring that you use, type of materials that you tend to gravitate to. Any ideas that you can suggest or recommend to the audience there?
Yeah, so I like to use like a satin paint, so like a little bit of a shine, not too much of a shine, and that's more scrubbable, so
Hmm.
it's easier to clean.
Okay.
If you get flat paint, that tends to chalk
Yeah.
if you try to do any kind of washing to it. And semi-gloss is a little too shiny, and it will show every imperfection in your wall.
Hmm.
So there's kind of a middle ground there of
Hmm.
satin paint. I think is fantastic. I also love tile floor or any type of hard floor surface. Not a fan of carpeting.
Okay.
So if a rental has carpet in it and it's in decent condition, I'll use it for a tenant or two, and then I'll rip that out. I'm not going to replace carpet with carpet, so
Hmm.
I'm going to replace carpet with a hard surface floor.
Is that
And
because it doesn't wear well? It's easy to dirty. I mean, because I know at one time carpet was the in thing, but
right,
nowadays
yeah.
carpet is kind of going out of style now.
I think it's going down to style. And if the tenant, I accept pets usually as a landlord. So a hard surface is, of course, much more pet friendly. And it's just more resistant
Yeah.
to odors and
Yeah.
dirt and all of these type of things.
Okay.
So I definitely think that's the way to go with your flooring.
Okay.
Um, and, so think about when you go to a casino, their carpet has like all these different crazy colors, right? So you don't see any stains in their
Yeah.
carpet,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just one example. You can go to any like large chain hotel and pay attention to the materials that they use there
Mm.
because they face the same thing. They don't want to be fixing things and using cheap things that are going to break constantly.
Yeah.
They want to use heavy duty,
Yeah.
durable items
Yeah.
that stand abuse,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I learned as well. When I first started, I was just getting the cheapest thing I can go to Home Depot. What's the cheapest?
Yeah, we've all and you know what else? Everybody buys the cheapest smoke detectors with the
Exactly.
cheapest batteries, and then they're chirping all the time, and it's a
Right.
catastrophe.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
don't
Yeah. So
make
yeah,
these
I
mistakes.
agree also that the cheap doesn't necessarily mean good.
Mhm.
You end up spending more money, over time and so on. Okay, so
Yeah,
we got the
yeah,
house ready, and it's looking good. We got some decent materials, not the top of the line, not the bottom of the line, but decent, durable goods, materials and fixtures in the house. And the next thing we have to do now is to sort of go get a tenant. So we have to go
yes.
find a tenant now to live in this indestructible tank that you've built. And so let's talk about finding a tenant and screening the tenant and things like that. Any words of wisdom you can share there?
Yeah, Joe. So first off, when you're a beginning landlord, you you get very excited, especially when there's money involved, right? And some people may come to you with cash money and say, here's 2 months rent in cash. Can I move in? And you have to set up a process for screening and follow that process and not be allured by someone, oh, I need a place tomorrow, here's some cash. Or and some people, I've had people pay for a year up front in
Mm,
cash.
mm,
But again, you got to be leery of that. So you always want to do a very thorough screening of your tenants, applicants they are at that stage, right?
okay.
So do a credit and criminal and eviction history and verify their income. And when you set these parameters, you got to stick to them. So, don't, and you have to screen every single applicant. So, well, every applicant that's over 18. So if
Hmm.
it's a husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend, anybody over 18 must be screened. And there's no exceptions. You really have to think of this as a business, Joe.
Yeah.
And it's good to be friendly with people, but you want to be friendly to a point.
Yeah.
So you always want to um, create an environment where you 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 make it very clear that you're in charge and that you're not going to just go with whatever they say.
Yeah.
You have rules and you stick to them and you think of this like a business and
Yeah.
it's not like, hey, buddy, okay, great. Oh, I trust you. Don't worry about it. And it's
So
not,
okay.
shake your hand and we got a
Okay.
deal type
So
thing.
when you first started out, so I know when I first started out, I bought the first house I bought. I mean, that was a nightmare. I inherited tenants who didn't pay me for 6 months.
Wow. Yep. I've been
That
through
was
that.
my first foray into real estate investing, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about screening. My screening was, hey, thanks. That was it. So in terms of what you did then, when you first started out, or the early years, and compared to what you do now in terms of screening. Have you changed your approach, and what were some of the key things that caused you or forced you to change?
Well, I'm like you. I've had my share of bad tenants, and
No, yeah, no,
and,
no
and
way.
you know, and you have to learn how to deal with those bad tenants and deal with them appropriately. But that being said, yeah, some of the other things I've learned, Joe, is you really need to kind of shut up and listen carefully,
Mm,
throughout the whole process. So you've got the first introduction to them of, they're applying for your rental and then you're meeting them sometimes at the property or at least talking to them over the phone. And every interaction you want to, listen very carefully and pay close attention to their story. What are they about? What do they do? And and you want to learn about them. You know what I mean? It's really in your best interest. What do they do? What do they do for a living? Do they have kids? So, where are they in life?
mhm.
Because you can kind of, maybe this comes with experience,
Yeah.
of hearing people's stories and learning later, you
Yeah.
know, what happens. Uh, but I, again, I think even without the experience, if you're just listening very carefully,
Yeah.
not talking too much,
Yeah.
and just observing the way that they act and the
Yeah.
questions that they ask,
Yeah.
it tells you a lot about them.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, are they picky?
Yeah.
You know, are they and there's a middle ground, right? You don't want them too picky, and you don't want them like, I'll take anything, I
Yeah.
don't care,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm ready to move in, and what's your requirement because I can't wait. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
um,
But I
so
mean, I
yeah.
know for me, I try to ask open-ended questions.
Mm,
One of the questions,
love
you
it.
know, what's it called? I
Mm.
like to ask is, that's one of my secret questions. Man, let me just tell you. I'll share with my tidbit. What I say to them, if I was to call your landlord today, your current
Mm,
landlord today, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would they rate you
I love it.
and why? And I listened.
let's see how let's see how honest they are, but yeah, that's a good one. I love
Yeah.
it.
So I asked that question because it's open ended and it gives them a chance to share from their perspective what they think the landlord's going to say about them. Not what they say about themselves, but what they think the
That's a great
landlord's going
one.
to say about them, and then the why.
Yes,
And they'll
yes.
tell you all kind of reasons why. And so on. So I mean, have you had anybody that kind of fooled you? They got by you, and
Yeah.
looking back, what did they what how did they fool you, and what did you learn from that?
Well, that's why I say, you know, you you want to listen to your gut, but you really need to do a full screening besides that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've had people fool me. They put on a pretty face and they, act very professional and get dressed up. And some people say look at their car, but they might just have cleaned their car.
Or stole their car,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, yeah, that's exactly why uh, I've had people fool me where you know, they they make themselves sound amazing,
Yeah.
and they're anything but,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that's why you really have to do your research on the people,
Okay.
and proper screening.
Okay. So just a quick announcement. We have a masterclass tomorrow,
Mhm.
7 p.m. Eastern time. Let's call the Landlord Masterclass, and we're going to talk about how to make money in real estate, how to reduce evictions and turnover, or eliminate evictions and reduce turnovers. So that's going to be tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern time. You can register at bit.ly /org25 register. You can see it on the screen, bit.ly /org25 register. I'm going to be hosting that webinar tomorrow. It's going to be really good. I'm going to share some of my experiences, similar to the great wisdom that Kevin's sharing with you, based on what I've learned. The good, the bad, the ugly over doing this 35 years. So sign up at this website, bit.ly /org25 register. Tomorrow, August 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, so at this point, we've screened the tenant. And the tenants, we've selected somebody based on our criteria. And the next logical thing, obviously, is you got to have some forms and agreements and leases and things like that to sort of formalize the relationship. So let's talk about what's your top tip there, Kev?
Yeah, Joe, you definitely must use a state-specific lease that covers a very detailed lease. So it covers not only the rent amount, the late fee, the term of the lease, who's living there, but I love a lease that goes beyond that, that covers who cuts the grass and who shovels the snow, who checks the batteries in the smoke detectors, who takes care of pest control. when you look at a lot of leases, they're very basic, and again, they just cover some of the financial stuff.
Hmm.
So you really want a little more detail, because the last thing you want is miscommunication between you and the tenant, where the grass is growing and the tenant's thinking you're going to show up to cut the grass, or
Right.
you're going to send someone to cut the grass, and then that never happens. Then you get a fine, and the tenant's not happy and you're not happy, and it creates a lot of friction.
Okay, so you
Um,
don't recommend those going to Office Depot and Staples, or going to Walmart and getting a lease? You're not a big fan.
well, this is why, like you said, I built my own system, so EZ Landlord Forms. We've been in business since 2006, and it's just wonderful because we have great landlords that we love to help. We get incredible feedback on our product, and again, it's very detailed, um, and includes not only the lease but all the other forms that you might need with that. So it also includes electronic signature, e-sign. We call it Easy Sign for
Mhm.
our brand, Easy Landlord Forms. Um, but yeah, that's paramount. That all the adults sign the lease. You have a very clear list of exactly who's living there. So not only the adults but the occupants.
Mm.
You want to document that in your lease, because if that they may have family members or friends move in, and you you can charge more for rent. You should charge more for rent
Mhm.
when those things happen. So when you document these things very well, it's very clearly stated. It's stated in our lease. If there's any change in occupancy, there could be an increase in rent.
Right.
Um, so
So
and
how do you make it state specific? Because obviously there's 50 states in the country, and then there's certain municipalities that will have
yes,
their own little add-ons to that. So you keeping track of all that stuff?
yeah, we keep track of all the states and all the biggest cities. We do provide more information for the biggest cities. We can't cover all the cities, municipalities, like you said. You know, you really should check with your local municipalities if they have anything unique. But 90 plus percent of the time, we have everything that you're going to need to
Yeah.
have everything not
Yeah.
only covered legally but go smoothly in your
Yeah.
rental. Um,
Yeah.
we're very passionate
Are you
about it.
seeing any trends in terms of regulations as it pertains to landlord tenants that you're seeing that's being applied across more states?
Um, Well, that's been, there's always some changes with the law. So some of the newer things is more and more regulations around bed bugs,
Mm.
actually. So, we're always staying on top of that. There was different things with COVID-19 when that was more prevalent and prominent in different areas. But I feel like things are settling down a little bit more
Mm.
now,
Yeah.
and people have a lot of people kind of relocated, and it's really leveled out to the point. We had that huge hike in spike in prices and demand,
Yeah.
and now that's starting to cool off. So I think it's a healthy thing, and was very much needed
Okay, good.
overall.
So we
Yeah.
got okay. So at this point, we bought the house. We built it like a tank. we screened, we screened the tenant. We got our tenant in. We got the forms and all the agreements lined up. And so at this point now, the tenant's in. They're giving us a security deposit. They're giving us the first month's rent, and they're paying like clockwork in theory.
We hope.
So yeah. So how do you maintain that relationship moving forward? What are some of the tips and suggestions that you have in terms of that?
Well, I think your relationship with your tenant is just like your relationship with your friends and your partner. Is communication is key, right? So, and I think you have a lot of great tips for this too, Joe. But communicating regularly with your tenant, you probably want to check in, now and then, especially maybe during the holidays. I think you send flowers, was it, to some of
Well,
your
I said
tenants?
Mother's Day. Every Mother's Day they get Mother's Day gifts. Every Christmas they get presents. If the kids get A's at school, I give them $50. And
Wow.
I said I give all my tenants a free vacation. How about that?
And then you rent out the place while they're gone, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do a quick Airbnb while they got. Yeah.
You want a new car? Oh, I thought, come on, why stop there? It
Yeah,
feels like a game show.
yeah.
Now,
So that's
that's
what I do.
impressive.
Yeah, because as you said, communication is the key. That relationship is the key. If you can
Yes,
nurture that relationship, manage that relationship, build that relationship, I found that is it just makes your life a lot easier. You
yes,
know,
absolutely. I totally agree. And trying to avoid the turnover of your rental and
yeah,
with different tenants, because
yeah,
that's where the work is, and
yeah,
that's where the most expense is,
yeah,
because you're fixing up things. You sometimes have a vacancy period in between tenants,
yeah,
and you have you're all that's costing you money.
yeah, yeah,
And sometimes you have to get the utilities
yeah,
transferred into your name
yeah,
in between, and
yeah,
then switch them back. And
yeah.
yeah,
It's very,
it's
very
not as
expensive.
fun.
Now, but there are different types of tenants, though. Some tenants, I call them the complainers.
Yes.
There's nothing you can do to make them happy. Their life's a mess, so they're gonna make your life a mess. And then there's other folks. I call them the avoiders. They don't want to communicate with you either because they don't want you to come to the house.
Uh-oh.
And you're thinking everything's okay, and then you go there 6 months, a year later, and you find out, oh my god, this thing is trash, it's destroyed, and things like that.
Yes.
So how do you deal with the difficult in terms of communication? Do you kind of reach out to them, or do you wait until they reach out to you?
Well, I do a little of both. So I'll reach out to them sometimes during holidays, Christmas or New Year's time is a great time to reach out. Even sending them a Christmas card, is something I do. I think I have to learn, if their kids get good grades, $50. Uh,
Right,
I
right.
love that tip, but
Yes. So
uh,
a free vacation to Tampa.
But I totally agree with everything you said, Joe. Is you have those tenants that pester you too much
Yeah.
for every little thing, and you have
Right.
those tenants that you never hear from, and there's major things wrong.
Yeah.
And those two extremes are bad,
Yes.
right? You
Yes.
really want it in the middle there,
Yeah.
where they're contacting you on something important, but they're not contacting you if a light bulb went out.
Right.
And we
Yeah.
put that in our lease too. So anything that's over $100, the landlord is responsible for it. But if it's a small thing under $100, then the tenant's actually responsible to fix, because
Oh wow.
again, it's not worth it for the. That's why I mentioned even checking batteries and smoke detectors. Like, I don't have time to go to every rental and check their smoke detector
Right.
batteries.
Well,
You
change the
know,
filter of the AC
it's
unit. Yeah.
yes, that's
As
in there
well.
too.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, okay, so we got the tenant in the house. We're communicating with them regularly, and life happens. We all know. COVID happens. They may lose a job, or they don't want to pay you for whatever reason. So what's going to happen if they don't pay or can't pay? What sort of your tips there?
Yeah, great question. Because that's a tough situation, right? That's tough on the tenant and it's tough on the landlord. So I try to keep really good communication to know what's going on. And in my mind, I feel like if they're communicating with you well, and of course your goal is to set timelines for things, can maybe you're, a few $100 behind, can you make that up slowly over payments? You know, you, you're willing to work with people, but again, you need to have good communication. You want to set up goals and deadlines and requirements for them to meet. And I get concerned when communication starts to break down. And for me, Joe, the key is if things start to go south and they don't answer their phone and or their text and things like that, I don't tolerate that, unfortunately. And I understand people run into hard times, but
Yeah.
again, I think of this like a business.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, sometimes you have to call an attorney. I don't do my own evictions. So, if I run into a situation like that, I have a local attorney that I deal with, and they take care of that. Because to me, that's kind of the dirty part of the business. Um, and nobody wins in that situation. But the one thing you're going to find out is they're either going to pay and stay, or they're not, and they're unfortunately going to leave. And you want them to stay, but what you can't do, Joe, is you can't let them get too far behind,
Yeah.
because then you can't even afford an attorney,
Yeah.
and then you're really in a bad position. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that will continue, and you're just gonna go deeper and deeper
Yeah.
down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
unfortunate.
So before we're going to go to Q&A in a couple of minutes. So for those people who got questions, we got the guy that's killing it on the line.
Thank you.
And so please add your comments in the chat. And we're going to go to Q&A very shortly. So fire away there. Don't do like what we normally do. Everyone waits till the end, and then we don't have enough time to answer the questions. So please put your questions, load them up, and we'll have Kevin answer them. But okay, so if they don't pay the rent, it sounds like the strategy is to go evict. And is that essentially the game plan that you kind of that you work with, or I mean, what's the game plan if they don't pay you and things like that?
Yeah, I want to really create a good channel of communication and communicate regularly. Don't be afraid to call them on a weekly basis if you need to, or again, set up goals and deadlines for payment. And then if that communication breaks down and they keep missing goals, then yes, it would be to call an attorney. And I'd like to set kind of an outline. Like I like to have a tenant lined up. I'm sorry, an attorney lined up ahead of time if the tenants do become late, and you can only let them fall so far behind, again, before you would contact that attorney and give them the information. And you know what, it's actually pretty affordable. i mean um I mean, I'm sure the prices have gone up by now, but I think it's a lot more affordable than a lot of people think. I was very intimidated by attorneys in the beginning. I thought it would be a whole lot of money, and I felt bad for the people. You do feel bad for the people. I still feel bad for the people. But again,
You got
if
to
you
do what
have
you got
that
to do.
mindset of a business,
Yeah,
that
you got to do what you got to do sometimes, and
Mhm.
and so on. Yeah, I mean, fortunately I haven't had an eviction in about 12 years now, and
Wow.
the last one, I mean, it's very traumatic.
Yes.
It's expensive. It's very traumatic for the landlord. It's very traumatic for the family.
Hmm.
It's. I mean, I remember it was horrible. I mean, the tenant was crying, the kids were crying. Whilst the eviction crew is putting their stuff on the street. It's a
Oh,
horrible
so
experience.
so you're talking about a lockout situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
oh god,
Oh,
it's
and
rough. But
I'm gonna throw in another bonus tip for you, Joe.
there you
Uh,
go.
so landlords really need to know when tenants fall behind on rent, they need to monitor their property. So they should drive by at night, see if there's lights on. I have found over the years a lot of times tenants tend to skip town. They just disappear, and you never see or hear from them again. But you don't want to leave your place vacant for a long time. Sometimes they may not lock the door. Sometimes they might leave a door open because they don't care, and
Mm,
they might leave, you know, dirt and trash behind, or
sure,
belongings. But
sure. Yeah.
again, you want to make sure the tenant's still there
Yeah.
and check on the property regularly
Okay.
because things get a little volatile
Okay.
during those times.
So let's go to a couple of questions. Pam, if we have questions, otherwise I'm going to keep on going with Kevin. Okay, it says from Johnny H. Do you have a software system in place to send the tenants communications or just email? Do you have a software system in place? I suppose communications tool that you use. What's your preference, or do you just use email?
Okay, so great question. So if it's a non-important communication, so I'm checking in with them, even if it's your rent's due, hey, heads up, it's time to pay your rent. That could be by text message, but any serious legal communication, certainly I do by mail. And if it's for non-payment of rent and a higher level of, you have like a soft late notice and then you have like a more serious late notice. So when you get the more serious ones, I'll do a certified letter. Um, and
Okay.
from time to time, I might do email. So we support Easy Sign. So we'll use email to sign the lease, send it to the tenant or applicant at the time, and you can also send these notices by email as well. So
Yeah.
a late notice, even the eviction notice, and you can do both. You can send it by email so they get it right away and snail mail or certified mail?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're great questions.
Yeah, because I know here you have to, at least in what DC, you have to send it by first class mail. You have to use a process server, so they can usually either attach it to the door or something like
Yes.
that. And but I find that text is usually the best way. That way, usually they respond very fast. Unless it's a
Hmm.
legal notice, then obviously you got to go through the regular legal channels. Okay, next question. Okay, what's it called? Before we get to the next question, again, we have a masterclass tomorrow, Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The Landlord's Masterclass: How to Make Money and Reduce Turnover and eliminate evictions. So you can register at bit.ly/org25 register and 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So sign up for that one. It's going to be a fantastic webinar. I'm going to be hosting that one. Org25 tomorrow at 7 p.m. bit.ly/org25 register is where you go / and so on. Okay, Pam, you got the next question, please?
Great.
Okay, from Dream Team Dream. Oh boy, you've got dreamers in the house, huh? When a tenant is month to month in DC, should they be switched over to a lease? If there was never a lease, are there rules that apply to a month to month tenant? Okay, so this is more DC specific, but we could kind of generalize it, I think, because this could apply across multiple places. So when a tenant's on month to month, is there do you have a preference, Kevin, for month to month, or do you prefer leases? And how easy is it to transfer from one to the other?
You you want to have a lease regardless of the term. So a month to month term. I usually do a year and then month to month.
Mm-hmm.
So either party can notify each other at their convenience, of whenever they want to end the lease. So and and look, would recommend strongly if you rent it without a lease, it's never too late. So you could go to my website or look elsewhere, but I would put a lease in place as soon as possible because what happens is you have what of how much the rent is and what the agreement is,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have what they think
Yeah,
is and if
yeah,
they don't jive
yeah,
and you have to go to court,
yeah, yeah,
it's a he said she said situation,
yeah,
and you have nothing to back you up.
yeah.
And there's a whole lot of detail besides the things that I mentioned about subordination. If they leave early, how does that get handled? There's a whole set of their security deposit. You should have a security deposit for your rental. and when does that get returned? How is that documented? There's a lot of extra
Yeah.
things that you're not thinking of that
Yeah.
the lease protects you from.
Yes.
That that's
Yeah.
what you turn when anything goes bad with your rental and your tenant, you go to the lease.
Yes.
And a real good lease is a lifesaver
Yes.
when you have a problem.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I would put a lease in place ASAP.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got essentially you've got to have a legal document that sort of formalizes the relationship. If you don't have that, then you are it's a disaster waiting to happen. And I think that's essentially what Kevin's saying. And the more
Exactly.
thorough that document should be to address all these variables, unknowns, or whatever it is, the better, and the more detailed, the better, and so on. So that's essentially what I would agree with that dream team is that you've got to have a formalized relationship. But for me, it starts off with usually a year's lease, and then it goes to month to month. So I don't start at the end of the first year, then we do another 12 months. That's not how I typically do it. After the first year,
How
then it
about
reverts
that?
to
Me
a
too.
month to month thereafter, and so on.
Yeah,
Okay, next question.
love it.
Johnny H. Kevin, do you work with the property management companies for your properties, or do you self-manage, and why?
Yeah, I always self-manage. I am really not a fan of, you know, and I'm sorry if there's property managers out there listening. um, but the problem is, you want to know who your tenants are, and personally, and your property's worth a lot of money. So that's not a job that you want to sub out to someone else and someone else handle. There's a lot of big important decisions that need to be made, and if if you hear everything third party, so the tenant calls your property manager, then your property manager calls you, you don't always get the exact story
Yeah,
from what your tenant said.
yeah,
And these are the things you learn. Well, I've used property managers, many times in the past, and I definitely learned the hard way that
yeah,
no one's going to care more about your property than you are. No one's
yeah,
going to find better tenants for your
yeah,
property than you are.
yeah,
And you know, you're
yeah,
going to make sure your property is well maintained and your tenants are being taken care of.
yeah,
Really, it's you don't want a situation where your tenants are calling the property manager and they're not answering the phone and they're not returning the calls and things like that. These are the things that happen that you're completely clueless of
yeah,
until you talk to the tenant. But
yeah.
you never talk to the tenant. You only talk to the property manager. So
Exactly. Yeah,
there's all
yeah.
of these things that happen behind the scenes that you're not aware of.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have false expectations. They think that all I got to do is give to a property management company, all my problems will go away.
Right.
It's like some miracle
Yeah.
pill or something. It doesn't work that way. I've tried property management companies before, and I haven't had very good experiences with them. And just like what Kevin's saying, it's your property at the end of the day, and you have to protect that investment. And if you're not going to protect it, then you can't expect somebody else to do it for you. That's just been my experience. But again, I'm not slighting property managers. There's a lot of good ones out there.
Hmm.
Some people just don't have it. So, okay, let's go to the next question. I live in New Jersey. I have a tenant that I'm in the process of evicting. Oh my goodness. Because of the moratorium, there is a huge backlog of cases. I haven't collected rent since May. Oh my god. Okay, I inherited the tenants and didn't get any personal info. Oh my goodness, such as social security and such. Will I be able to hold them accountable for outstanding payments? So the scenario is that this guy KB, he inherited some tenants. He has minimal information about the tenants. They owe him money, and he wants to evict them. He's in New Jersey. So any suggestions for him, Kevin?
Well, I don't know all the details. The more finer details here. Um, you definitely want to get an attorney, even if there's a backlog in cases. I think you need to talk to that attorney. I don't know if you have the lease from when you bought the property or not, and what's in that lease, and what kind of records you have of payment before that. This is unfortunately a very common scenario that you bought a property, inherited a tenant, and it was a bad tenant, and that's, I hate to say, sometimes the reason why they're selling the property because
Right.
of this scenario. So yeah, I think that the local attorney is your best bet, and they can really guide you. And if you're not happy with what one attorney says, try another. And
Yeah.
and I really like looking at reviews, online reviews, and read the reviews and make sure there's substance to the reviews.
Yeah.
That would be my direction here, because
Okay.
the the um, this moratorium problem is a
Yeah.
tough one for landlords, like you
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
and some attorneys may have more clever ways to handle things like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. I add to that is that I would, KB, I would see if you can meet with the tenant. I mean, they may have had an adversarial relationship with the previous owners, and you can maybe reset that relationship. And there could have been personality conflicts or whatever it is. You're a new guy. There's an opportunity there for you to sort of reset that relationship and start working with them. What I've done when tenants fall behind on rents, and especially during moratoriums, I have my assistant research all the various programs out there, because there's quite a few programs that's run by the
Oh,
city,
that's a good one.
the jurisdictions, or whatever it is, and that can help tenants with rent, with some utilities and things like that. So it's almost like a self-interest. There's money out there. They may not have the wherewithal to get it, and so you help them get it, and therefore now they see that you are helping them, and that can sort of start building that relationship again. So you have a self-interest to get the rent, and there are programs out there. They may not have the wherewithal, so you learn, or you have an assistant learn how to access those funds, and then you work with the tenants to go get the money, because if you don't get the money, somebody else is going to get it, and the money's going to run out eventually, so you may as well try to get it while it's still there before it runs out.
I think if I could add a couple more things to that, cash for keys might be a great option in this scenario. And one of the things you don't want to do as a landlord is don't change the locks
No.
on your tenant and don't shut off the utilities on your tenant.
Yeah. We'll take the door off the door.
Right. That's not the right road to go down. You're going to get yourself in a lot of legal mess yourself.
Yeah, I was in landlord tenant court once. This tenant came in. This landlord was so upset with his tenant. He came in during the day when the tenant wasn't home and took the door off and took the front door off.
Yep. These are the mistakes you learn. You learn what not to do.
Oh my God. Okay. Sorry. Next question. We've got kind of wrapping up in a second. Got maybe one more time for the last question. Do your leases cover or have an Airbnb sublease or Airbnb sublease clauses and things like that?
Great question. So yeah, we specifically have language built into our lease that the landlord chooses whether or not to allow a sublease or not. And we also have leases. I mean, it's the same lease that you would use on Airbnb that you would use on a regular rental, but it's really not a bad idea to have a detailed lease, even in an Airbnb situation. So, and even in a sublease, so even those that might rent out, and like I mentioned, like you could go on vacation, and while you're on vacation, you could rent out your house and make money. So there's all kinds of different scenarios and creative, ways to make money. And yeah.
I know that I don't allow subleases.
I
don't allow my
I
tenants to
don't.
go rent to somebody else, because
Right.
next thing I know, I don't know who this person is, and unless it's like a rooming house with multiple tenants. But I generally do not allow the tenants to sublease. I need to know who's in the house at all times, and I don't need to know the strangers there and things like that. Okay, I think it's let's have a look. It's about almost 8 o'clock, Kevin, and I got a lot of questions I didn't even get to, so we may have to do a part 2, huh?
That sounds good. And, I'm ready, Joe.
Yeah, so I enjoyed the conversation. So, Kevin, if people want to kind of connect with you outside of the session today, how would they be able to do that?
Yeah, you can reach me on social media. So I have an Instagram account. And of course, you can reach me through my website as well. And, join our newsletter. Check out EZ Landlord Forms. We have not only leases, but we do tenant screening, some of the best, probably the best tenant screening around. We just completely revamped the whole new system. And yeah, I love connecting and communicating with landlords and people like yourself, and helping people become more successful landlords overall.
Okay, so there you have it. If you want to kill it, go to EZLandlordForms.com. If you want to kill it even more, connect with Kevin on Instagram and his other social media platforms. And I've really, really enjoyed the conversation, Kevin. Before we wrap up, everybody, I just want to let you know we have a masterclass tomorrow, August the 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So you can register at bit.ly/org25 register. bit.ly/25 register. 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to talk about how to make money, reduce evictions, and reduce turnover as well. So that's what the focus is going to be on there. It's going to be for seasoned, beginners, and intermediate investors, landlords, whether you're house hacking, whether you got a room to rent, whether you're scared about the recessions coming in and you need to make some money. We're going to address all those issues tomorrow. So please sign up, and 7 p.m. Eastern time, bit.ly/August 25th register. I think that's about it. And Kevin, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conveation.
My pleasure. Me too.
A little teaser. I did meet with Emily. She's the editor for your blog and newsletter. And Kevin, for everybody know, has graciously what's it called? Well, I'm gonna be. He's written an article about me, I suppose.
Yes.
Well, you tell them what's going on.
Yeah. So join our EZ Landlord Forms newsletter. We have a great article on Joe. Tells a lot of Joe's background story. It's fantastic. I've read it myself, and that will debut the first of the month. So be sure to check that out. It's a real good one, and Joe has a lot of great content. I love talking and working with Joe.
Yeah.
Some great stories.
Okay, so we'll probably be working together more often, and with Kevin and EZ Landlord Forms. So look out for that. And again, to Kevin, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, sharing with the network and the listeners how to kill it. and so on. So yeah, I definitely want to. Maybe a few weeks later we'll have a part 2 sequel, where we can dive into some other aspects of landlording, and because landlord is a great business. If I love being a landlord, I do Section 8. That's a whole other discussion.
It's a great way to build wealth, real estate. Really,
I love Section 8. I love you, this landlord in that program. It allows me to build wealth and do good. But we'll talk about that in the future. So again, I'm gonna wrap it up today. So again, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in for the today's Wealth Wednesday. And we'll have another session next Wednesday where I kind of round out the August month of landlording, put all the different live streams together. So I'll be on there next week. And then on September the 7th, we have Mr. Scott Trench. Scott Trench is the CEO and president of Bigger Pockets. So that's another coup. And if anyone's got some good ideas of potential guests that we can have on the show, please drop us a line and let us know. And don't forget to register and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're producing a lot more content for you. And my goal is to help you build wealth and do good. So with that said and done, I'll wrap it up for today, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Take care, folks. Thank you. Kevin, stay on, please.